glad there's some people on. Thank you. Sounds working. Oh, I hate that with lives. I hate when I'm watching a live and there's issues like that. But I guess it just happens every now and then. Happens to the best of us. Great. I'm so grateful. I can see there's 5 people on now, so at least it's getting out there. Thank you very much, Nina, for all your help. Hi, Rosie. Hi, Olivia. Awesome. Okay, well, I have quite a bit to go through today. When I was working on this training, I realized there was actually a lot I wanted to teach because there's a lot of questions I get asked about responsiveness and a lot of issues that I have students having. There's just a lot to sort of learn, and I realize there's just so many things that I do I guess just instinctively now after all these years, and I'm sure a lot of you who have been doing it for a while, you just kind of do things, but when you actually go back and look at what you do, you realize it's quite a lot. So there's quite a bit to teach. So I'm going to go through a lot today. What we're going to cover, let me just get my slides up. So we're going to learn how to have the bulk of the work done for you automagically, how to easily customize every element on your site to fit perfectly on all screen sizes, understanding things like padding, margin, pixels, percentages, view width and view height, and how we can use these to our best advantage in responsiveness. I also added more to that, like max widths and min widths and stuff as well, because I use them quite often and they're really handy for responsiveness as well. Also, the 3 responsive web design hacks I do to save, honestly, probably more than 5 hours most of the time on every website project. Before I did this, I would just spend hours pulling out my hair at the end of a website project, and I really wish I had have implemented them in my process. So I'm going to share those with you. And once you start doing them, you'll be like, oh, yeah, duh, like, of course, that's so much easier. And I'm sure a lot of you already do them too, but you probably went the hard way like me. And I'm also going to share an awesome tool that makes testing and tweaking for responsiveness even faster. It's one I only discovered last year, and it's been super helpful. Okay, so awesome. Okay. Oh, Anna's here. Karen, awesome. I'm so glad you guys are here. So first up, let's look at how to have the bulk of the work done for you automagically. So this is a pretty obvious one, actually, and a pretty easy one. And it's not some crazy little hack or anything like that. It's literally, and probably a lot of you are doing it already, but it's pretty much using a theme or a plugin or a page builder that is built for responsiveness. And so the bulk of it will just sort of downsize and or like change the size of the screen, and everything will sort of move pretty much to where it should be. Some of these older themes or cheaper themes or free themes don't do that very well. And so you'll be ending up having to spend a lot more time like tweaking them and everything to make them fit. The wonderful thing about page builders like Divi and Elementor is that they mostly do this for you. There is still quite a bit of tweaking that you have to do depending on how you've designed the website, if you're using negative margins and things like that, which I'll go into a bit later. There is obviously some tweaking you need to do, but for most standard sort of sections and designs, everything is just going to like shrink down, stack right, and look good on the devices. So that's my first tip there, is to make sure you're using a really good quality theme or page builder. If you cheap out on those things, then it's just going to make your life harder down the track. And really, if it's going to cost you maybe like $100 to get a good theme or something versus $0, the amount of hours it's going to save you, it's going to well pay for itself. So totally worth the investment. Next, how to easily customize every element on your site to fit perfectly on all screen sizes. So the great thing again about, like, you guys know, I go on about Divi and Elementor all the time. Obviously, there's other page builders out there like Oxygen, and also Breakdance is the new one, new kid on the block. And they're great too. You can customize pretty much every element, every section, row, module, element on the page. You can customize it and you can adjust every little thing within those for all the different device sizes. Or usually you're setting it just, there's maybe 3. Like I know in Divi, they give you like a desktop size, tablet size, and a mobile size, and you can change, say, the size of the font, even the color of the font, or the size of an image or anything like that based on what the screen size is. So that's really cool. So again, using a quality theme or page builder is the way to go. And this is just an example. You can see here that this is in Divi, very similar in the other page builders. You just toggle between the different device sizes, so phone, tablet, or desktop, and then you can adjust the sizes of, say, fonts or images or whatever to suit the particular device size. So again, having that just granular control over everything is just so helpful. So you can create these really amazing designs, and you don't have to sort of limit your creativity and limit yourself based on what is available to you, because you can pretty much do anything. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3. Now this is probably getting into like the harder parts of it. And this is understanding the different units of measurement in web design, in particular responsive web design. So typical units of measurement we have are pixels, percentages, VW, which stands for viewport width, VH, which stands for viewport height, padding, margins, and I'm going to go into a bunch of other ones as well. So let me just, where do I have this? Here. So this is the guide that I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. I will give you a link to at the end of the presentation. Come on, zoom out. And I've got heaps of stuff in here going through the different units of measurement, how to wield pixels wisely and sort of be careful when using pixels, and also understanding padding and margins. So let's just go through a few of them. So firstly, we have percentages. So in any of your page builders, you can, when you put in, like you might put in, let's have a look. I'll just show you this. If you can see here how you can put in, the pixel dimension in any of the boxes. You could also, instead of doing PX, you could put a percentage symbol, or you could put any of these other symbols that I'm going to show you, and that's going to use that unit of measurement rather than pixels. Usually pixels is the default, or maybe percentages. Also ENs tends to be the default for when you're doing the line heights. But you can change any of those based on the unit of measurement that you want to use. And so hopefully this guide gives you a bit of an idea of what units of measurement are best for different situations. So a percentage, this unit is based on the size of the parent container. So if the container is bigger or smaller, the size of the element changes proportionately. So say if you had a row in Divi and it's 1,000 pixels wide, and then you put a module in that row, and then you set that module to be 80% of just the width be 80%. That's going to be 80% of the container, which is the row that's 1,000 pixels. So that's going to be 800 pixels. And it's going to be percentage wise. So when that row gets smaller on smaller screens, that module is also going to get smaller relative inside it. So hopefully that makes sense. A similar one to percentages in that case too is viewport width. So this one down here, the VW. So, but rather than the view, it being based on the width of the container, the immediate container that's in it, actually it's based on the size of the screen. So this can be really handy. I in particular use viewport height if I want a section to take up 100% of the screen. So I want it to like cover the whole screen, regardless of if the screen is this big or if the screen is this big. If it's like this big or this big, I want it to cover that whole part, and I don't want to see anything underneath. And I can set the viewport height of that particular section or row to be 100 VH, which makes it 100 of the viewport height. So you can play around with those, and that can be just really good. It makes it scale down and fit appropriately for all the different size screens. They're really handy in responsive web design. So you have VW, viewport width, and then you have viewport height. They work exactly the same. Obviously, one's just the width and one's just the height. I'll just skip over some of them, but I'll go down to pixels, because pixels is one that we use pretty much all the time. It's one that's probably the most common unit of measurement that we find on websites, and you'll see it as like the default in a lot of the settings when you go through your page builder. And they're still really useful to use, but they are something to really be aware of when you're creating websites to make sure they're mobile friendly, because pixels are a set measurement. They're not a relative measurement. So if you set something to 1,000 pixels wide, it's going to be 1,000 pixels wide, even if the screen is only 400 pixels wide. So it's not responsive. It's going to break off the screen. It's going to cause issues. So there's ways around this. And I still use pixels, but I use them in conjunction often with max widths and max heights. So I'm just going through, I'm not going to read all this out. Where are we? Where did I put the max widths? I don't know where they are. I'll just explain them. So in a page, I'll show you. I got this up so that I could show you. Let's actually go in, and I'll go into the page builder and I'll show you something. So I use pixels in conjunction with max widths, in that maybe I want this image here to be 1,000 pixels wide, for instance, but on devices, I want it to be, I'm trying to figure out how I can explain this where it's going to work. Let's maybe have a look in here and see. Let's see what I've said in here. So all of these measurements, obviously, you can find them usually under sizing for the max widths and min heights and things like that. I'm pretty sure that's the same in Elementor, but wherever you would usually adjust like the sizes of the rows and things like that, that's where you would find it. And so what you can do, you can see here, okay, so here's an example of how I've set this up. I've set it up where I want this row to take up 80% of the screen, regardless of whether the screen is a big desktop or whether it's a small mobile phone. But I also want it to be a maximum width of 1080 pixels. So if the screen is huge, which I can do now, hopefully you can see this actually. I don't know if you can see this, so I'll do it a different way. You can see as the screen gets bigger, this row still stays the same size. It doesn't stretch out to 80% of the screen, and then this wouldn't overlap and it could look all funky. So I've contained it to, it's only ever going to be a maximum width of 1080 pixels, but when it gets smaller, it's going to get smaller than 1080 pixels, but it's never going to get less than 80% of the screen. And you can see that it just starts going down, and then I've changed it so it stacks differently on different devices. So that's how you can use pixels in conjunction with max widths or min widths or min heights, max heights, that kind of thing, to scale them proportionally. So again, if I go into the row settings here, I'll show you under design, sizing, this is where you can set both of them. And if you're ever unsure about what these things mean too, you have this little question mark icon that will sort of give you a bit of an idea. And so you can always click on those and sort of try to understand them a bit, but also it's going to be in this guide as well that I've put together for you too. So hopefully that makes sense too. And if anyone has any questions, if you want me to clarify anything, please pop your question in the comments and I'll get back to that as I go through. Okay, next up, 3 responsive web design hacks to save 5+ hours on every project. I'm just going to grab my puppy because she's whining in the background. always whining in the background. Okay. Okay, so 3 responsive web design hacks that I use to save hours on every project. The first is what I just mentioned about widths and max widths and how I use them in order to just force things to be behave differently on the different device or screen sizes. I'm also very careful using pixel dimensions and where I can, using sort of percentages and things like that. I also test and tweak before I copy anything onto other pages. And so I made this mistake. I made this mistake and it just cost me so much time where, say, I've designed a section on my homepage. I usually do the homepage first, like most of us do. And maybe I've got a section on the homepage where I like the layout of it. It's not a section that I'm going to copy exactly. It's not like it's a global section that's going to be exact on every page, but I like the layout and I'm going to use that similar layout of that section on other pages throughout my site. So I might copy that layout and, paste it onto my about page, change out some images and text and things, and then go, oh, yeah, and I'm going to use that layout on the services page, and then I'm going to use it on the contact page, and I'm just going to copy, paste it to all those different pages, change out stuff so it's not global, it's not affecting, the previous one that I've done. And then I get to the end of the project and I'm like, okay, now I've got to make it all responsive. But now I have to make that section, that same section that I've copied, once, twice, 10 times. I have to tweak that once, twice, 10 times for every one of those instances that I've copied to make sure that it's responsive and it's scaling down correctly on in looking nice on all the different screen sizes. So you can see how that's just so much double handling. Whereas if I had okay, I really like this section, I'm going to copy it and put it on some other pages of my website. But before I do that, I'm just going to make sure that it's scaling down right and everything's looking, and I need to make that text a little bit smaller on mobile, or I need to stack those elements differently so that they, they make sense on mobile better. If I do that before I copy it, it's going to take me maybe 20 minutes or something to tweak that section and test it and make sure it's all working right. Whereas if I have to do that later 10 different times, it's going to take me hours. So that's something I learned the hard way and something I cannot recommend highly enough. If you're going to be copying a section, and obviously it's not going to be global, because if it's global, you can just tweak it at the end. It's going to tweak it everywhere, so it's fine. But yeah, if you're going to be copying them, make sure that you're testing them and tweaking them before you copy them over. Same goes for even if you're just doing it on the same page. And I do that often. I'll probably, create a section at the top of the home page and I'm like, oh, that layout works pretty well. I could do that at the bottom as well for this other section. Tweak it first before you copy it down to the bottom of the page as well, because the same applies there. So that's my first little trick. The next one is to build for one size first. And I spoke a little bit about this in an Instagram post, in a social media post I did recently about building for desktops first. And you might hear and you might feel this pressure as a web designer that you have to design for mobile first, because there's all this talk of mobile first design. But in my opinion, and it turns out it wasn't an unpopular opinion, most designers look like they're doing it too, which is great. It makes me feel like I'm not alone. That designing for desktop first just means that you can make everything, you can be more creative, you can push boundaries more. I feel like designing for mobile first, things are always simplified on mobile. They have to be. It's a smaller screen. And so if you're designing for mobile first, it's going to be a lot harder to make things look more fancy on a desktop than it is to just strip things down from desktop to mobile and take things away and simplify it on mobile. So that's what I do. But regardless of what you do, I think it's really important to design for just one screen size first, whether that's desktop, tablet, or mobile, whatever's your jam. And once that's approved by the client, then you can make it responsive. Because the downside of making everything responsive right away as you probably would have guessed, if a client comes back and says, actually, I don't like that, or I don't like that particular part, or I want to change this, or I want to completely change this layout, if you've gone through and you've made it responsive everywhere, then you've just wasted that time because you're completely changing the layout. So I like to just build for one device first, desktop first, and then I test and tweak it for mobiles later when it's approved. And I have a little disclaimer too, which feel free to copy, like take a screenshot so you can copy this text, because this is the disclaimer that I sort of put when I email a client their initial like homepage to review or something. I'll say something like your website is designed to work on desktops and laptops only at the moment. Once the design is approved, we will thoroughly test on mobile devices to ensure everything is looking and working as it should. And I'll also say this is a preview of the home and about pages only, because that's typically all I design initially is the home and potentially the about page, depending on the project. I'll say things like clicking on any of the buttons or links may take you to empty pages. Once the home and about page designs are approved, we will start adding content to your other web pages. And I shared that, I think, in Web Boss Weekly, my newsletter a couple of weeks ago. It's also on my socials. You'll see a carousel thing, so you can grab all that text for adding that to your project too, if you'd like. And then I had 5. I was going to show you an awesome tool to make testing and tweaking for responsiveness even faster. So this is a tool that I only discovered last year. Lovely student of mine told me about it. It's called Hoverify. And I've just got it, I use it as a Chrome extension. And essentially, you can just get all of these, all of this info. It does, you can get the colors, you can inspect the elements, find out what fonts they're using, things like that. But my favorite thing about it is that you can use this responsive thing that shows you the website on all these different screen sizes, and you can scroll through them all at the same time to see, check for any responsiveness issues. So I'll show you. So for example, let's look at this one. So there's a Chrome extension up here. I'm just going to click on this, and then I'm going to go click on responsive. Just wait for that to load a bit. And what I might do is, I'll just scroll through first so you can see. But rather than having to scroll through on every device separately, which is what I've had to do in the past, like you check on this screen size and then you make it a bit bigger and then you check on that screen size, that kind of thing. Here, you can just scroll through all at the same time, and they all scroll through, and you can see if anything's looking a little bit off. It's taking a little bit to load. There is an image there. I think it's just because I'm recording. But yeah, you can pick up on any particular things that might be a little bit off. And it's just makes life so much easier. It seems like such a basic thing, but compared to having to check on this screen size and then that screen size and then trying to remember, I can just see how it's sort of all working on different screen sizes at the same time. You can also go up here, you can just select which ones you want to view. So for instance, like these are the same dimensions. So I'm just going to turn one off. Doesn't really matter about the height so much. I'm really just looking at the width. I'm not precious about things not like overlapping or fitting the height so much on mobile. I don't think it particularly matters. So I'm going to turn those off. Let's just see. So I'm just going to keep width. I think that's pretty much. So I'll just turn a few off. Do I have a 375? Okay, let's save those. And so you can just see all of them at the same time. And I just find this super helpful. You can also refresh. So if you've made changes or like this one's not showing, so I'm just going to double check to see if it's actually broken or if it's just not loading properly because of my internet and recording right now. But yeah, so something's going on there. So that's something that maybe I need to check because there should definitely be something appearing there and I shouldn't have this big gap. so I can see that that's happening. So yeah, this is Hoverify. You just go to tryhoverify.com and you can check it out. There's also this video that sort of runs you through all the different things, and has heaps of other really cool things, like, where is it, built with, which is kind of cool. So you can, see the technology that the site is built with, which is helpful. Also assets, which I like, because I have other plugins, so or Chrome extensions that, like this one here, that does the same thing to download assets. But this Hoverify means that I can get rid of like these three other Chrome extensions I actually don't need anymore. I only need Hoverify, and it does them all. Unfortunately, it's not free. It is a paid tool, but I find if you're doing professional web design, it's going to save you a lot of time. It's very helpful. So I think that was all I had to go through. Please let me know if you have any questions. I will go through those now. Let me just check my notes. One thing actually I realized that I did miss was just talking about padding and margins, because I know that is something that people are a bit unsure about, and how to use them right. So essentially, padding is what's within the actual module, so or section or row. So it's inside the element. So in this case, padding is this space around this text. So this is a text module where I've set a background, and then I've put probably about 30 pixels worth of padding on either side. So that's, created this nice little free white space around it. Margin, on the other hand, is what's outside that element, so from the border out. So I've probably set about a 5 pixel margin down here, or 10 pixel margin at the bottom, to push this element under, so it doesn't sit directly there and it doesn't sit further down. I've made sure it sits precisely, I think that's about 10 pixels down. So the margin is outside and the padding is within. There's also another thing you can do. You can't have negative padding, but you can have negative margins. And so negative margins mean that you can actually push things rather than away from something, closer to something. So for instance, if I wanted, well, this is probably a good example actually. I've probably used a negative margin to push this image further into this row. Into this column, sorry. So here I've created a 2-column row, and I've got the text in this one and the image in this one. And what I've probably done here, I'm assuming, is that I've made that image, I've used the transform, like scale, I think it's called, or transmute or something. So I've made it bigger than what it would actually fit within that column. And then I've created a negative margin, probably about 100 pixels, pushing it a negative margin to the left. So that way it's going under these ones and pushing it, and they're overlapping. Also, these little stars here, I would have done probably used absolute positioning and then used a negative margin to push them sort of further to the right and further to the top. So you can use these negative margins to create some really cool overlapping designs, and I love using them, but it is something to be aware of when you're trying to make things responsive, that when you start scaling things down, you really need to be careful how those negative margins are playing on different devices. So for instance, like I showed you here, if we go to the top, you can see that I've changed it quite a bit on mobile. I've got rid of those little stars because they were just sort of making it a little bit tricky. I probably could have them there still, but I just felt like they weren't needed. So I hid them on mobile so I don't have them. I also haven't had the text overlapping the image like we do on desktop, because it just would have made the text too small. It kind of wouldn't work on such a small screen. So you do have to make sure that you change things up on the other devices, smaller screen sizes and stuff, so that they scale down nice. Otherwise, it'd probably just look like all out of whack on mobile. Okay, just seeing if I have any questions. Please pop in the comments. I've got a few things last minute things to go through. So if you do have any questions, if you want me to run through anything, even if you have a particular design, you're wondering how they potentially achieved it too, let me know. And if I can do it on here, I will show you. Yeah, so pop them in and let me just see what else I have to go through here. So firstly, I wanted to let you know it is like, I think the last day, the last day. There you go. You have less than 24 hours to apply for the Be the Boss scholarship if you haven't already. So I'm offering a full scholarship to my Be the Boss of WordPress course. The lucky designer will win the course completely free, and we start in a couple of weeks. It's a 8-module course running you through from the very beginning to the end of building a WordPress website all by yourself. It's 100% beginner friendly. I talk very minimal code. If you don't want to touch a single line of code, you don't have to. You can go through this whole course and create a beautiful website without code, and a really powerful one as well, all built on WordPress. So if you're interested in learning a bit more about that and applying, I really encourage you to go here and apply. As I said, the applications close like within 24 hours, so go do it now. And this is the URL to go to, just emmacate.co/win. And I look forward to going through everyone's applications. Also, so if you want to get the cheat sheet, so this is what I'd told you about here, this one here. If you go to emmacate.co/mobile, you can go grab this and get this cheat sheet. And I go into a lot more detail and sort of break it down as well, because there's only so much I could sort of talk about here without boring everyone. But I give you a lot sort of more information about sort of EMs and RMs and how you can use them together, that kind of thing. So I encourage you to go grab that. So it's just emmacate.co/mobile. And also, I'm like super excited that I have this free training coming up, which I'm dropping. Where is it? Next week. I'm still putting the finishing touches on it. That's how brand new it is. It's how to confidently create irresistible WordPress websites your clients will love without code, confusion, and years of costly mistakes. So if you want to know when that drops, it'll be dropping sometime next week. As I said, it's almost done. Please go pop your name on the wait list here, and I will let you know via email when it's dropped and you have a chance to watch it. It's going to be great too. I'm really looking forward to this one. I know you're going to love it. So go do that. That's just at emmacate.co/create, and you can pop your name on the wait list there. Okay, let me see. I have some comments. Lauren, going to watch the first 20 minutes on replay so I don't ask any daft questions you've already covered. You can feel free to ask some questions. That's totally fine. Maybe I haven't covered them. I'm going to attempt horizontal scroll on my first real try at my website. Dumb idea for a newbie, or probably possible in your opinion? Yeah, I don't think it's too hard. I don't think I've really done it that much. I'm trying to think. It depends on what theme or page builder you're using, probably. Also, if you want a particular, honestly, it'd be so easy if you just found a plugin that did it. But if you don't want to do that, there's probably ways around it, just with a little bit of code, or using, I think even Divi scroll effects potentially, maybe. I'm really not 100% sure, but it can't be that tricky. Just Google it. I don't think I've really done it that much. I'm trying to think. I've done carousels and stuff, but not full you scroll and it goes that way. But it's very cool. Definitely possible. You're underestimating how interesting this is to designers who have no idea what they're doing. Oh, well, I'm glad I wasn't boring you. That's awesome. Thanks, Lauren. Yes. So please attempt it. Attempt the horizontal scroll and let us know how you go. Let us know what you discover. I'd be keen to hear if you find an easy way to do it. I'm sure there's tutorials out there What are you using? Do you have a particular theme or page builder or something you're using? Are you even using WordPress? Are you going to use a different tool? Because I know, like, obviously different tools are going to be easier than others. But yeah, if you're using WordPress, there's going to be, or even like, Divi, there's going to be a Divi extension plugin or something like that that's going to be able to do it for you. But yeah, even ask in the group. I know if you reached out and designers letting web dev, there'd be someone in there. I'm sure PK Sign would probably be like, here's the code to do it. There's some really handy people in there that'll be able to help you as well. Okay, I think that's probably it. I don't know if I have any questions, but thank you everyone for joining me. Sarah, awesome. I'm glad. She said, I felt so it felt so hard when you said desktops heard. It felt so hurt. Yes. I think, and honestly, so many designers commented saying, yes, that's what they do too. And even shout out to Dominique Faller, who was actually my dean at university. She was like the head honcho who taught me design, and she said that's what she does. And I'm like, sweet, okay, well, if she says it, then I think we're all good. So I think it's probably the right way to go. Awesome, yes, and definitely go check out Hoverify. As I said, it's a paid tool, but it just saves me so much time now. I really love it. However, if you don't want to use a paid tool, rather it's not really helpful so much for responsiveness, but there are these other tools here that I use for fonts, to find fonts. So what font is one. I went through these actually in my Gathering Design Inspo presentation live that I did a couple weeks ago. So you can go check them out there. So there's what font, there's color pick eyedropper. So that shows you what the color is on anything on a website, gives you the hex code. So that's really handy. And then there's this one too, where you can, what's this one called? Image downloader or something, image downloader. And so you can download any of the images on a site, which is quite handy. It works on most sites, unless ones that are sort of really locked down, which isn't on my site. So yeah, they're kind of really cool ones to do, the font one too. So, but you eliminate the need of any of those if you're using Hoverify. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Sorry about the tech issues at the beginning and for boring you with all of that. I'm glad my mic ended up working and I went live. So yeah, thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, you're watching the replay, please leave a comment. If you can tag me, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'm probably going to miss it. I get too many notifications. So if you can tag me, then it's more chances are I'm going to see it. Yeah, so just let me know and I will jump back and give you answer if I can. And yeah, I would love you to apply for the Be the Boss scholarship. So please do that if you haven't already and you're keen to win the Be the Boss course, then definitely go there, emmacate.co/win. And if you want to get this free training, how to confidently create irresistible WordPress websites your clients will love without code, confusion, and years of costly mistakes like I went through, then just go to emmacate.co/create. And I'll see you next week in that training. Okay, everyone have a lovely Friday or lovely Thursday, wherever you are. Bye.